tuned in to the Big Story segment of the BDTV Breakfast Show, where we discuss key issues shaping our nation and economy at large. I am Deborah Eze. Today, we examine the effect of the President Muhammadu Buhari demise on the planned 2027 political coalition to unseat the present administration. As Nigeria navigates its evolving political terrain, the passing of former President Muhammadu Buhari marks the end of an era, both militarily and democratically. Buhari's influence on the political establishment, especially within the Northern Bloc and the All Progressives Congress, APC, remains significant even in death. With the 2027 elections fast approaching and calls for a national coalition to challenge entrenched powers gaining momentum, the question arises, will Buhari's absence weaken the Northern political consensus or alter coalition building dynamics across regions? In this segment, we engage a political analyst to examine the late Buhari's role in coalition politics, Northern alignment, and what his death could mean for the 2027 realignment. Our guest this morning is Dr. Kash Onanuju, DG of the Heritage Center of Abuja. He's also a political analyst and public affairs commentator. He's conversant with political issues and one of the brains behind the obedience movement, and will unpack the real implication and development. Good morning, Dr. Kash. It's good to have you on the show.
I thank you very much for having me. Of course, I greet your audience and I wish them very well on a great Nigerian morning.
All right, let's go straight into it. Now, what role did Muhammadu Buhari play in shaping Northern political unity? Now, especially during the coalition that led to the APC's rise in 2015?
I would say the problem of the North didn't start with the Buhari. It's an old problem. And Buhari himself was born into it. He was born under the Daura Emirates. The Daura Emirates stretches from Daura in Nigeria through Maradi in Niger to as far as the Libyan border. And Buhari has told us constantly that he has his relatives in Maradi. And of course, we know what that is. But then that's not it. Buhari first came to limelight as a soldier during the war, and then the national service when there was the coup that removed the civilian government of Shehu Shagari. But because of, in the words of a former military president, Babangida, Buhari was rigid. They had to do a coup to remove him. That was actually Nigeria's first palace coup. And then Babangida ruled. But when Buhari came back for the second term, people had a nostalgic feel about the work of Tunde Diagbon, and they thought Buhari could recreate that. But no, Buhari's government became a disappointment because all the promises he gave us weren't there. And today, his legacy is remembered well for the weaponization of nepotism. I remember when he did one thing. I told somebody yesterday, I said, it is tricky that Buhari is gone and Igbos are still part of Nigeria. Buhari established in the Igbo heartlands what is called the covert oppression, perpetrated by elements of the Buhari administration, today known as unknown government sting operation. Buhari in Katsina State, where houses are now jubilating, started the industrial scale ethnic cleansing to gain land to resettle Fulani refugees who were running away from war in Central African Republic, from Mali, because in Central Mali there was a war between the Dogons and the Fulani in Mpotsi. And of course, in Burkina Faso and other places, it is due to that Fulani war that you now saw the AES, the Association of the Sahel States. They now formed themselves because of that war. But the war now bettered into Nigeria. As the war got into Nigeria, Buhari was successful in getting people like Buratai, the army chief, to look away from the constitution, which originally his oath was sworn to. No, his oath now became to Buhari itself. Meanwhile, Buratai is actually Babur. It's Babur, also called Bura. It's Babur from southern Borno. They say the Babur also exists under the Adamawa Emirate in Adamawa State, but most of them also, just like the Marigi, they live in both Adamawa and also in Borno. But he was that loyal. He looked the other way as the Fulani militiamen sustained their ethnic cleansing actions aimed at gaining lands for the resettlement of the Fulani refugees who had come from Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Mali, and other places to resettle. Now, it's not that Buhari didn't try to help them, because we have had this problem before. First, we had the refugee crisis when Israel invaded East Lebanon in 1974. Lebanese refugees came here. Nigeria quartered them in Kanu, quartered them in Apapa, Lagos, and some in Benin and other places. But when we now had this influx of refugees, instead of Buhari to repeat what we've done before, no, he started trying to pretend resettling those refugees was an agricultural policy. He demanded for things like grazing reserve or looking for land. Nigerians refused. He said car colony, we refuse. He said consolidation of underground and surface waters and then to make that, with Nigerians refused. He even tried to call something National Livestock Development Program, at which the states were promised, if you bring land, the vice president will now midwife a strategy where you will get money. But after the elections in 2019, before government was formed, Nigerians saw a pump set giving us APOs for Ruga. And that was how, when everybody came up to understand it, that policy crashed. Okay. So he tried very much to gain land. And when Nigerians couldn't budge and give land, that was when they now started this policy of industrial scale ethnic cleansings for ancestral lands that swept through Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara, Sokoto, places like Niger State, Plateau State, and of Taraba State, and now Benue State. So his legacy isn't that very good.
Okay.
Yes, his wife is now going around begging Nigerians to forgive, that the man says you forgive. No, you should have been a Nigerian president in the first place, not trying to. The reasons why Nigeria was not overrun by the Fulani militiamen was just because they don't have numbers. And another thing that helped Nigeria was our diversity. Our diversity is our strength. And that's why, even though Buhari is no more in power, you could see that ethnic cleansing action continued. Only last month did the president go to Benue, and nothing could happen. It was only when the president asked, why are there no arrests, that in 48 hours we saw arrests. What does that mean? It tells you that Buhari has so much Afghanistan, our army, that they could see Nigerians being killed and they keep quiet. It only took the admonition of President Tinubu for us to not see arrests occur within 48 hours. This is Buhari's legacy.
All right. Let's now move on to his leadership. Do you think Buhari's death leaves a leadership vacuum in the north ahead of the 2027 election? If yes, why? If no, why not?
I don't think so, because you can see now, even to tell you that Buhari's leadership was bad, Tinubu has come in and continued some of Buhari's leadership policies. And of course, Buhari's party, the CPC, the members are not happy with Tinubu continuing with Buhari's policies. What have they done? They have now acquired the ADC, and ADC is right now being used as a strategic staging station to depopulate the APC. And that's why, if you understand that the issue about the coalition is, yes, the first stage, depopulate the APC and put them in the ADC, and later on, if a platform is now organized for election, everybody will now leave the ADC and come into that platform. Because the way it is right now, P2B will never ever be engaged in a dollarized primary with Atiku or anybody. And don't also forget what we're doing. Due to Buhari's weaponization of nepotism, some of them now are thinking that it is okay for Tinubu to be succeeded by a Yoruba man. It's not okay. Nobody will accept. So if we will not accept Tinubu to be succeeded by a Yoruba, why are you now seeking that the Northerners succeed Buhari? This is the problem. This is all part of Buhari's legacy. And I say it is due to Buhari's use of subjugation to try to intimidate the rest of the country that those people in the north who are with Buhari think that the country is so fully intimidated and subjugated that nobody will talk. We would not say that. Okay. The presidency is only in the south for only 2 years. Yet, those who work with Buhari are seeking to take it back to the north. This is how bad the Buhari's legacy can be remembered for.
Okay, so do you think Buhari's personal political structure, if still active, can influence who would emerge as a key coalition figure in 2027? Because you mentioned
it is already played. Yes, it is already at play because the ADC platform was purchased all full-headedly from Mr. Raf Nwosu by the CPC faction, 100%. Even though the original negotiations were started by people who are close to Mr. Atiku Abubakar. I've mentioned someone like Mr. Ben, Senator Ben Obi, who happens to come from the same Oka where Mr. Raf Nwosu comes from. Nwosu now has sold, that is ADC. But then because of the plotting by Atiku to insist he will now do a dollarized, because he's a champion when it comes to dollarized primaries, Peter Obi will never participate in the dollarized primaries. And that's the truth. So the issue they have now is that of platform. Once Peter Obi is able to organize a platform, everybody will leave and come there, because you cannot do Buhari 8 years and then expect that the Southerners will allow you to now put another Northerner to succeed Buhari. It doesn't work that way. So they need to understand Buhari is gone. What works for Buhari would not work for other people. And that's one thing I think people should understand. We should learn about the inclusion of our heterogeneous diversity in nation building. That's what they should understand. Okay. What works for Buhari would not work for Tinubu.
Okay. So do you think, I understand your stance when it comes to Buhari, but do you think there are potential northern figures who could fill this influential gap that Buhari leaves behind in shaping a national coalition?
Well, because, the issue about Buhari was the last, if you ask me. When the British left, the Fulani remained. Don't forget, the Fulani and the British and the Portuguese were the only three people who came here. The Fulani came in 1802. The Kanuri didn't let them. And they left, went to Fota Toro. They had issues with the Mandinka. And in both the Fota Jalon, they had problem with the Mandinka, the Susu. In Fota Toro, they had problem with the Mande. But when they came to, later on to Gobert, Gobert today is a local government of Sokoto State. Sarkin allowed the man to sit and teach his son Yunfa this new, Sufi ideology under the Sunni Islam doctrine. But what we saw is the Hausas allowing the man to sit was the reason the Fulanis organized to now not only form Sokoto and use that to undermine the Hausa Bokwe states. When the British left, the Fulani stayed and continued their strategy of settler colonialism. But as you can see from what the governor of Adamawa did to try to roll back the settler colonialism, and we in Nigeria are now gaining a lot of awareness about the dangers of settler colonialism and shouting. And of course, President Tinubu, yes, the rhetorics now, but we also demand more action be put. I think Buhari is the last. You will not see nobody who will come to this march and people will trust him as we trusted Buhari as Megaskia. It's not so. We now understand the strategy of the Fulani since the British left. And I think their problem is, yes, why Buhari tried to help them to embellish
I think we lost Dr. Cash for a minute. He was giving us his insights on Tinubu, or we having another political figure who would actually fill the gap that Buhari leaves behind in shaping a national coalition before we lost them there. We'll go on a quick break now. When we come back, we'll be reconnected with Dr. Cash. Stay with us.